Well, hello again, my friends. I thought it was about time, having had so many subscribers, and I do thank them very much, to my various videos on YouTube. I thought it was about time that I actually produced a new video. I had to have a think about what to talk about, but one thing has been niggling away at me quite a bit in recent times. And that is that there are many words which are used in religious movements, in mystical and occult groups, and in some situations the words mean something to them and might mean something quite different to somebody else. We have not yet, across the globe, established definite meanings for all words, especially in dealing with metaphysics, mysticism, occultism, spirituality, religion. One of the words which I'm going to deal with this time, on this video, makes some people cringe, and it shouldn't. It's only through lack of understanding that people respond negatively, and that is karma. I cringe when I hear this phrase from John Lennon. I'm not criticizing him, but you hear about instant karma's out to get you, and you couldn't be further from the truth. There have been many debates over centuries about does karma exist? If it does, what is it? There has been a tremendous amount by the theosophical writers discussed in their books. I am fully supportive of the theosophical attitudes. I do feel it rather unfortunate that there aren't enough books written by experienced theosophists that, rather than being verbose, as many of the texts are, it's sad that many books aren't written in common or garden language for the layman, introducing them to more complex concepts. Anyway, karma is the thing. The point is, and I have some biscuits. I'm forever coughing. You'll see on all my videos I'm always coughing. I've always had problems with my throat, so apologies for that. Yes, karma. Despite the fact that the word and numerous attitudes to what it represents, have been discussed through history, it took a really advanced master, a yoga master who even now is still grossly underestimated by many people, including one or two of his followers as well. I'm talking about Sir George King, founder of the Aetherius Society, who was far more than he seemed to be. I've met him several times. He passed from us in 1997. But he was an extremely advanced master who, for the most part, again to use a well-used phrase, he kept his light under a bushel by necessity. Since he's passed on, we can say more about him than we could when he was here. And all I'll say for this video is, yes, he was extremely advanced. He was far more than he seemed to be. Not a guess, we know something of his origins, and it would surprise some people. But it took an advanced person like that, when asked what karma was, to give an answer in 3 words. It is pressure. Now, just like that, it may not mean a lot to many people, but with a little thought it will make sense. This was a man who knew what it was. He was a man who was expert in manipulation of karma, and it is there to be manipulated. It's there for your benefit, and you can manipulate it. It's meant that you manipulate it. But what was meant by pressure? He actually meant that it is a pressure which is part of the normal order of things, which for most people gently, and on odd occasions not so gently, is pushing all life in the whole of the cosmos through experience. It guides us, it pushes gently to guide you into experiences so that you can learn. One of the words, if I had the power, I would love to have removed from our vocabulary, certainly in terms of spirituality and karma, and that is punishment. Because there have been many people who believe that if you do something wrong, God will punish you, which is absolute nonsense. God doesn't punish. Karma teaches. If you need, as an individual, or as a group of individuals, as a nation, or as a planetary race, if you need to learn certain lessons in life, and we all need to, we will learn those lessons ultimately, all of the lessons we need to learn, we will learn. But if we don't learn those lessons, and experiences are brought our way repeatedly, and we still don't learn particular lessons, it's like in a school where eventually, the teacher, I won't say the teacher gets the cane out. They don't these days, but they used to when I was at school. But the lessons get harder because you've got to learn that lesson, and you will learn it. One way or another, you will learn that lesson. I shouldn't have had biscuits before I speak. But God doesn't punish, karma teaches. There are many statements of karma, and even our scientists have such a statement of karma as part of their sets of laws of physics. I think it's relegated to is it the third law of motion of Newton? I'm not quite sure. Action and reaction are opposite and equal. I think it's the third law of motion of Newton. Don't quote me on that. I might get it slightly wrong. It might be a second or something like that. But you see, in Hinduism they talk about karma. In Buddhism they talk about karma. In the original teachings of Jesus, before the Roman barbarians took over and warped and distorted it out of recognition, Jesus taught about karma. And you've got all the great religious founders: Krishna, Buddha, Jesus, Patanjali, Sankaracharya, Sri Sivananda, Sri Ramakrishna, Laotse, I Ching, and others. And they all conceptually taught the same things. And they all taught karma. Because it's real. It's there. And you can't get round it. Action and reaction are opposite and equal. Now in places like India and Tibet, and even in certain quarters in China and such places, there have been quite advanced, in certain ways, civilizations going way back. In India, for example, the great Lord Krishna gave sets of teachings which many centuries later were reinforced by the Lord Buddha. He came and taught the same things, again, to reinforce the teachings of Krishna. They were presented in a slightly different way. Although conceptually all the great teachers taught the same things, their presentations altered depending upon who they came to, when and where, etc. So they had different presentations, but they taught the same concepts, using different words sometimes, but the same things. When you look at Hinduism, just on a very general level, Hinduism is a yoga-based religion which includes karma and reincarnation. Buddhism is a yoga-based religion which includes karma and reincarnation. The original teachings of Jesus, before it got warped and distorted, is a yoga-based religion which includes karma and reincarnation. And the other great masters like Patanjali and the others I mentioned, they all taught karma reincarnation. And it's all yoga-based. It always has been. Okay. And they all taught karma. When Jesus volunteered, every word chosen carefully, when Jesus volunteered to come to this earth under great limitation, and he took up residence in a human body, even though he was not himself from this earth, he was amongst people. And please understand that in no way through this am I criticizing any individual or group of individuals. I'm trying to be objective here. Jesus walked, for the most part, among people who were not as well educated, certainly in mysticism, occultism, spirituality, as I said, people in India and Tibet, for example. So if Jesus had actually said to, some fisherman, farmer, carpenter, average man in the street, in the places where he was, action and reaction are opposite and equal, they probably wouldn't have understood what he was talking about. So being the very, very, very advanced intellect that he was, with almost perfect clairvoyance, he aimed the statement of karma at a level that they would understand. There's no point in saying it if they don't understand it. You've got to make sure that you get the point across. And this is what he did. And he basically said to them, as you sow, so shall you reap. Which is true. That is action and reaction, being opposite and equal. What goes around comes around. He who lives by the sword dies by the sword. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It doesn't mean that we should take an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. It means that karma will. If you kill someone in this life, the chances are, unless you remedy that, and you can, you will be killed at some later stage yourself. In that same life or in a future life, you will be killed. The karmic debt is paid. It's like a debt system, if you like. But it's also got a positive side too. If you help somebody in some way, then the karmic law dictates that in a similar fashion or to the same degree, you will get help from somewhere else, because you have to reap what you sow. True, you do. One of the reasons why it's difficult often to see karma in action is because the reactions or repercussions of our actions don't always come straight away, and you don't necessarily associate the action and the reaction with each other. By the time the reaction comes, sometimes you've forgotten about the action and you think, oh, I don't deserve this, or something good happens and you think, I don't deserve this. Yes, well, actually you do. You've done some good in the past and therefore you're reaping some good now. And it's an exact law. It's exact. It's a totally immutable law. There are beings at all levels of evolution throughout this cosmos. I mean, we on this earth think because we've got this technology and certain groups of people, because they're in control of certain levels of technology, think they're the bosses, they're the good guys. I mean, not in terms of good and evil, I don't mean good guys. I mean, they're the great ones who have the power, They're just as much under the control of the karmic law as anybody else. There are some individuals on this planet who are not of our race, who are quite literally many millions of years senior to us in evolution. They can't get round karma. All the planets in this solar system, all of the planets in this solar system, and some of the moons, are inhabited by beings, many of whom are humanoid, who are at least some many millions of years senior to us in evolution. None of them can get round it. There are great beings, believe it or not, and this isn't generally known, but it's not a secret. There are highly, highly evolved beings, beyond those living on the planets, in terms of evolution, that live within the sphere of the sun. They are known as solar lords. They can't get round karma. It is those beings who, at some stage, when the situation is required, shall we say, or the opportunity becomes available, a group of solar lords who are currently, physically, not in bodies like this, they're in energy bodies that can exist in any environment in nature, they will come together through mystical initiations, the like of which we can't begin to imagine. A number of them will come together, and through advanced initiations will be, as it were, bound together, and they will become a multiple entity that operates as a single entity. And such an entity will then be the life force, or logos, of a planet, just like the one directly beneath my feet and yours. Near the centre of this earth, there is a life force, a logos. From an energy polarity point of view, it is female. She is a vast multiple entity, operating as a single entity, and this thing that we call the planet is just a part of her physical body. The more advanced you get, by the way, the more self-discipline you take on board. And so you imagine a planet going round the sun, for 7, 8, 9, even 10 billion years, or whatever the figure is. And you think, what sort of discipline is that? It's beyond anything we can begin to understand. She and all the planets in the system, every planet which is a living being in its own right, can't get round karma. In the dim, dim distance, billions of years down the line, each planet, having had a number of incarnations as a planet, will then go through even higher levels of initiation, mystical initiation, higher levels of spirituality still, and they will come together, and they will be bound into an even greater multiple entity, and they will be the life force, the logos of a new star, and it becomes a star, a sun, just like our sun, which is a living, breathing, conscious being. We see a little bit of, hot flames around it, and the rest is hidden. But it's a living, breathing, conscious being that visualized this solar system into being. It didn't happen by chance. There was a super, many times over, intelligence, which visualized the solar system into being. Trillions of years down the line, suns will come together, having had possibly many incarnations as a sun, and they will go through higher levels of mystical initiation. They will become the life force or logos of a new galaxy. They can't get round karma. Galaxies will come together, like the Andromeda galaxy, which is moving towards our Milky Way. At some very, very distant time in the future, the two galaxies will actually come together as an even greater galaxy. And this is what happens. This is evolution. It is also the going back to God, as all life comes together. Until in the ultimate end, the theoretical end, because the timescales we can't comprehend, all life in the cosmos will come back to being one. And just as in the theoretical beginning, when it came out from one, God, it came out and differentiated. And it's taken billions and billions of years, and it's more than 13 billion years for those astronomers. They need to rethink It's not 13 odd billion years, the history of the cosmos. This solar system's older than that. Our sun is older than that by a long, long way. You know, they need to rethink it. But yeah, as it came out in the first instance, and differentiate it. So through consciousness getting involved with matter, which is involution, consciousness coming into matter, starting to learn and then evolving as it comes back to where it came from. And we have involution and then evolution, two halves of the cycle. Evolution is only the second half of the cycle. And we're just now, us, coming from the animal stage, and we're just starting our upward journey. We're barely above the animals on this planet. What about the beings who are trillions of years more advanced than us in evolution, who probably came out, if you like, earlier than we did, and have gained experience faster than we are doing? But you see, right at the theoretical end, when it has all come back together, and every single subatomic particle has come back, so that again there is just one, and it probably will take, guessing, it will probably take a billionth of a second, and it's back. Journey completed. Whether it will repeat, we don't know. You see, but this is what happens, and there are no beings who can get round karma. There are beings who, as it were, make sure that karma works perfectly. They, as it were, monitor it or supervise it, if you like. There are beings called lords of karma, and they are at different levels. There are lords of karma, greater lords of karma, supreme lords of karma. And then there are even greater beings who are lords of creation, greater lords of creation, supreme lords of creation, beings who bring galaxies into being. They can't get round karma. It's absolute. And it's because it treats all life exactly the same way. Action and reaction, opposite and equal. As you sow, so shall you reap. There is compassion in the law, but not to the point of being unfair. You see. So all life is operating, all matter, all manifestation is operating within this one law. Please understand that this is not a criticism, but it does make me smile sometimes. But in a kind way, shall we say, a nice kind way. We have our professional scientists, and I was trained in electronics, so I learned basic physics. I was in the Royal Air Force as a radio technician, so I did learn some basic physics, electronics, and electromagnetic radiation and stuff, you know, with radio and radar. You know, some of our professional scientists, they do experiments and they work out the laws of physics. One simple example that I'm familiar with is a simple law which is known as Ohm's law. If you produce an electrical pressure, an electrical voltage from a battery or a generator, and you use wire conductors to feed that electricity to a certain point, and you connect it to something which is going to use that electricity, okay, we have units that we can measure what's going on. We have voltage, which is the pressure pushing the electrons through the atoms in the wire. We measure the amount of electricity that's flowing around that circuit, current, which we measure in amps. And we have the opposition of that load, whatever it might be, to the flow of electricity, which is the resistance to the flow, and we measure in ohms. Okay? And we have a little triangle which associates them. The voltage at the top and the current and resistance at the bottom. And we use this, you know, that if you want to work out the resistance, you divide the voltage by the current. If you want to work out the current, you divide the voltage by the resistance. If you want to work out the voltage, you multiply the resistance by the current. You see, and it's the little triangle. You see, what is often not realized is that is karma. It is action and reaction being opposite and equal in a particular situation. all the laws of physics that science deduces is action and reaction being opposite and equal in different situations. In fact, the more you become a student of metaphysics, the more you learn the background that mainstream physics doesn't yet quite reach. And you begin to realize that in the whole of the cosmos, despite its immense, unbelievable size and its unbelievable differentiation of matter and life forms, etc., and energies, that there's only one thing: ether. There's nothing else. It's ether. You see. I've dealt with this, I think, in my... did I mention it in my reincarnation talk? I think I've got a manifestation talk, video out as well. And I probably mentioned it on that. I can't quite remember because it's a long while ago. But the only thing that exists is ether. The senses that we have in our body, and all life forms have in their bodies, are capable only of detecting motion in the ether. Just like the waves travelling across a lake or coming in from the ocean onto the shore, we see individual waves, but it's purely locations where the water movement is different to in other locations, and so you can see differences in the movement. It's the same with that. That is a complex pattern of standing wave patterns, what we call subatomic particles. It's purely the ether which has certain standing wave patterns created in it. It's ether in motion. Everything is ether in motion. The desk, the air, everything, the planets, the stars, the galaxies, it's all ether in motion. There's one, I was going to say one substance. It's the wrong word, because ether is not a substance. In fact, if you want it more specifically, I suppose we could say it's a field of influence. Already some of our scientists know that if you look down within subatomic particles, there is no physical matter in there. There isn't any. Anywhere in the cosmos. None at all. There never has been. There never will be. There is no such thing as physical matter. David Icke has commented on this, though he mistakenly calls it a hologram, which of course it isn't. It's not a hologram, it's a thought form. It's the wrong word. He's more or less on track, but he doesn't get it quite right. The whole of the cosmos is a vast thought form, as it were, in the mind of God. And individual things within the cosmos are lesser thought forms, some of them created by vast intelligences. Like I said, the supreme lords of creation bring galaxies into being, and it's a projected thought form that other life forms can ensoul, move into and ensoul. You see. So there's only one matter. Oh, that's wrong. There's only one substance with a little tiny s, ether. There is only one law governing it, which is karma. Action and reaction are opposite and equal, that's all. And there is only one source for it, and force which brought it and is keeping it into manifestation, and that is God. And there's nothing else. It's the great simple. And the only law that exists in the cosmos of any real significance is that action and reaction are opposite and equal. That's it. It's the prime law of manifestation. Karma. When you apply it to a human being or any sentient life form, then the statement Jesus used is quite good. As you sow, or as you give out, so shall you reap, so shall you get back. In exact degree. It's the law. You can't get round it. Doesn't matter who you are. I don't want to upset people, but sometimes when you speak the truth, it will upset people. If I was a corporation or a company and I was creating a product that I wanted to market, excuse me, and if I was a little bit unscrupulous, I would get the media to put on adverts for me. And in that advert, we would say, our product is the best. You know, little bit probably of an exaggeration, but you're pushing it. Ours is the best, buy ours. Now you know there's competition. So what do? If you're a little bit unscrupulous, you say, well, theirs is okay, but I'd watch out though, because there are certain things, that can be improved on, or there are certain things that can go wrong or are not right about somebody else's product, but ours is perfect. Okay, so you push the product. You use the two influences of fear and the sweetener. The fear, don't buy theirs because you'll regret it afterwards. Fear. But if you buy ours, it's better, it's good for you in every way, and if you actually go and buy a packet of our stuff, there's a competition on the packet and you can win £5,000. Oh, sweetener, come on. So it's the two things. Scare them and then bring them back with a sweetener. And this is exactly what was done with a certain religious movement. When the barbaric Roman heathens took over, infiltrated it and warped it out of all recognition. They said, ours is the best. I'll say the name, I wasn't going to. Jesus is the one and only. Jesus never said he was the one and only. It's a sales campaign. Ours is the best, you've got to follow him. He never said that. Do you know when Jesus was actually travelling through India and Tibet? Certainly when he was going through India, he went into Buddhist and Hindu temples and he read their holy works. He didn't say, you've got to follow me. He was happy that they followed Buddha or they followed Krishna. He'd got no problems with that. No problems at all. So, the Romans, for example, in this situation said, ours is the best. This was to get people under the Roman thumb, while they were in office, you come under me, give me more power by you coming under my thumb. And that's why they were doing it. Then they introduced the fear, the two sides, the fear and the sweetener. If you don't follow this person, you will be condemned to eternal hell and damnation. It's stuff to scare children. There's no truth in it. There never was. How many people have had near-death experiences and they go in to see the most beautiful environment? There's no hell, and even bad people, in inverted commas, they don't see flames and sulphur and, the devil with his horns and a pitchfork. There's none of that. It's fairy tale. It's the negative fairy tale stuff, which scares people. And those who didn't know any better believed it. And it worked, and it got people under the Roman thumb, swelled their ranks to make the Roman officials more powerful. And then the sweetener. And if you believe in Jesus, all your sins will be forgiven you. Oh, they loved that one. I'm afraid they did. But didn't Jesus and every other teacher, genuine teacher, teach the same thing? As you sow, so shall you reap. With a huge letter S, shall you reap. No exceptions. Where does the forgiveness of sins come into it? It doesn't. It's the sweetener to pull the people in because they love it. Oh, they'll love that one. That'll get them in. That's all it was. It was part of a sales campaign. Not true. And then the local people in the churches, cathedrals and churches. Come into this little wooden box and tell me all the things you've done wrong, so they can report, they can keep track on the ones who are anti, the ones they need to keep an eye on. You tell me what you've done and I'll forgive you your sins. No individual in the whole cosmos, I don't like the word sins, has got the authority or the power to remove one sin from your head. Nobody. No one at all. You can, but nobody else. You see, because if you've done something wrong in the past, and it's still waiting to come, this is what I said, it doesn't always come straight away, and you have, as it were, trailing behind you through your past lives, you have a karmic pattern that you have created. And that governs what is allowed to happen to you now and what isn't. I lost my thread there. So what happens, I've lost my thread, so apologies for that. Because I went off at a side track. But you have a karmic pattern going back thousands and thousands of lives. I've forgotten where I was going, but so you'll understand, because it is quite a complex subject and it's so vast. But one thing I didn't mention, which I need to, if you think in terms of our, shall we say, science, science is nothing unless you can express it in numbers. Well, if you knew enough about it, you could express karma absolutely in numbers, because it's exact, it's an exact law. But you see, there are so many factors that we don't know that you can't get it right, because you don't allow for everything. And that's the problem. But you're thinking in terms of numbers and equations. You know that if you have an algebraic equation, A equals B times C, okay, you can transpose it and it's still true, and you can do that with the karmic statement, a statement of karma. If you use the expression, the phrase that Jesus used, as you sow, so shall you reap. It's an equation. You can invert it, and it's still true. You cannot reap what you haven't sown. True. You can't. If you haven't sown it, you can't reap it. So when little Willie, 3 years old, can play Mozart on his piano, and he, only 3 years old, he hasn't studied music, but yet listen to him go. The fact that he has that ability, and you can't reap what you haven't sown, means he's got to have learnt music before. So it proves reincarnation, because if he hasn't learned it now, he's got to have learned it in the past. There's a wonderful young lady, and I don't know whether I should say this on the internet where other people can listen to it. This is my opinion. I'll purposely say this is my opinion. But there's a wonderful young lady in the Netherlands, Amira Willighagen. I was absolutely knocked out by this wonderful, beautiful young lady, who at the age of 9 won Netherlands Has Got Talent. And she went on there, and these 9-year-old vocal cords, and she sang opera like a seasoned opera singer, and she's only 9. My personal feeling is that young lady in a past time was known as Maria Callas. Amira, notice, being an anagram of Maria. And you look at her gestures when she's on stage, and what she does with her hands. She does this a lot. And the expressions on her face, and it's very reminiscent of Maria Callas. And because Maria Callas had dedicated her life to singing and had given so many people pleasure, it's something which helps people. And so I think that ability to sing has carried through, and she's been reborn now. In my opinion, she's been reborn in the Netherlands and is now making a career. Whether she'll stick to it, I don't know. I think she should. But she's making a career out of singing. She has reaped what she previously sowed. And it's of benefit to people, so it's carried through, so she can continue to do it. You see. So you can reap, or you will reap, in one degree or another, in one way or another, in exact degree, you will reap everything you sow. You can't get round it. This is what makes me so sad. There is a certain group of people, and I better not say too much or they'll take this video off. And I'll probably find myself in a wooden overcoat. But if I am seen in a wooden overcoat, you'll know who did it, or who initiated it. But there's a certain group of people who claim to be illuminated, and you know who I mean. There's a lot of it on YouTube. They are the most ignorant people you could ever imagine. It's not a secret that the law of karma is immutable, all perfect, and you can't get round it. And yet they have done such tremendous damage to the earth and to the human and animal population of this earth, as if they couldn't care less, or they're totally ignoring the fact that everything they have put out they will get back, and it will take them hundreds, sometimes hundreds and hundreds of lives to work off the negative karma they are now creating for themselves, and they cannot escape that. And there are two big families, both starting with the letter R. you know, trillionaires many times over. One of those families could put most of this world right by the end of this year, or within the next few months. All the people starving, all the people with dirty water, all the people with illnesses, you know, with droughts and famine, they could put that right, and they could put that right this month. For the most part this month, and certainly within a couple of months. With the money they've got, the resources they've got, they could put that right. The fact that they helped to cause it, and they're not putting it right, means that they will have to go through that to teach them not to do that. Karma. It's exact. And it's so sad that people purposely do things to hurt others, you know, and don't allow for the fact that it's going to come back on them. Sorry, it is. So karma's an exact law. But the thing to be, to have in your mind all the time, it is not something to fear. I give contact spiritual healing every week. I've been doing it for over 30 years, nearly 40 years actually, not far off. And I'm getting reasonably good at it. The point is, I don't claim to be a saint, I'm not. But I put myself out to help other people in that way and in other ways, like this video itself. You know, I'm going out of my way to do what I can, little bits here, little bits there. By karmic law, I have to reap that. If I do anything wrong, I will reap that too. Same as you will, same as everyone will. But the point is, do not fear it. It is there 100% for your benefit. You see, if you do something that's good, I'm being very, very general here, you know what I mean, but you can put that into any situation. The karmic law, which is immutable and perfect, and no respecter of persons or position, will absolutely guarantee that somewhere down the line you will reap good from somewhere. It will come, and there isn't a force in this cosmos that can stop it. You will reap that good that you do. It will come back to you. When it does, you are in a better position to do more good, and therefore more will come, and it's like an upward spiral, and through the lives you gradually build yourself up. There are many people, I'm afraid, who are digging themselves into a deeper hole. You know, I'll just talk very briefly on one last thing and then I'll call it quits. I don't even know how long this has gone on for. I haven't been timing it. So it's anybody's guess what it's going to be in minutes. We do actually know, thanks to the grace of Sir George King, the Western Master of Yoga, one case in point that we do know about, at least in basic principle. I think it was about 30 BC, the last of the pharaohs, a female who went under the name of Cleopatra, who had been a particularly naughty lady, and that's an understatement too. She had used her feminine wiles and her authority to take advantage of others and to lure others and to whatever. You know the story. As you sow, so shall you reap. When she passed on, we know what happened to her in basic idea after that. She became a slave of a very powerful evil black magician, a wizard of the dark forces. She found herself in a position she could not get out of. Because she, I don't know that this is exactly as I'm explaining it, but this is how I see it. Because she had been, some regard as very pretty, my words, when she became the slave of this black magician, she became sort of entangled, if you like, with an animal aspect. So I imagine that she looked pretty gross. You know, so, I mean, she probably wouldn't have been happy about that. But she found that she still had a certain animal magnetism, that men were attracted to. And she was made, under the influence of this wizard of the dark forces, her dark master, she was made to go into a populated area where she would attract a man, draw him back, and then she would witness him being tortured and murdered. And then she would be sent out again. This is the true story. And she would bring another man back, and or female, and she would watch them being tortured and murdered. And again, and again, and again, and again. And this went on for approximately 2,000 years. She must have got to the point very early on where she had seen so much torture and murder, because you can be murdered on the other realms, you know, when you pass on from here onto the other realms. You can die there too. And she witnessed this. And it must have sickened her. And it must have become part of her instinct. Oh, murder, torture. And it must have really made her sick, mentally, you know, physically probably. Until we have heard the story. I think it was 1965? Don't quote me, I think it was 1965 when she was released from that. From 30 BC to 1965. That's how long she had to go through this. As a lesson, not as a punishment, to teach her. For 100 million years into the future, she will shy away from torture and murder, because it will be so ingrained in her. That is one extreme aspect of how karma teaches. I've actually thought of one more, and then that will be my final thing. Many thousands of years ago, there was one particular evil black magician, wizard of the dark forces, who had become very skilled. He was very quick on the uptake, and he learned, because there are on the lower realms where these people congregate, there are schools and colleges where you can learn the dark arts, you know. And he progressed and he learned, and he became very, very highly skilled, until he became eventually probably the most skillful evil black magician this world has ever seen. And he put himself in a very difficult situation, because if you imagine, if you are very, very evil, I mean vilely evil, and you are surrounded by people who are almost as bad as you, any one of whom would kill you without thinking about it to get your power and position, the only way they can defend themselves is to keep their identity secret. So even those closest to him probably didn't even know who he was. And that's the only way he could protect himself. And because of his skill, and because of the fact he had to keep away from everybody else, with tremendous magic surrounding him as a defense, but still operating through that to manipulate others, of course. He kept that position, some people say, for something like 6,000 years. Everyone who, as they say in Star Wars, turns to the dark side of the Force. I'm trying to put humour into it, but I'm talking about something very sad and very dark. Everyone who goes down that path will, somewhere down the line, make a mistake. This individual made a mistake, and it cost him. And in 1969, the devil, Satan, was killed. It's not a secret. If you want to know more about that, go to the Aetherius Society at aetherius.org, read their literature. People in the society will talk to you about it. There are certain things that some of us may have learned that we're not allowed to talk about, but a lot of the more general information, yes, they can talk to you about it, and they can explain exactly what happened. In 1969, the devil was killed. Just after that, Sir George King and the Aetherius Society was the first organisation on earth to publicly state the devil is dead. True. And the very final comment of this talk, just dealing with him, which is all an aspect of karma, of course, is that being as skilled and knowledgeable, very intelligent, very knowledgeable, but just focusing it in the wrong direction, he knew a lot of what we know now. And one thing that he almost certainly knew was that the most advanced beings in this solar system living on a planet actually inhabit Saturn. He knew that, which is true. David Icke and one or two others don't have it quite right in that the most spiritual beings on a planet in the solar system inhabit Saturn. It's not evil. I'll just make that comment as well as a side issue, because people who are maybe Icke's followers may pick up on this. One of the things I get the impression that David Icke is saying, sorry if I get it wrong, is that evil influences are coming from Saturn. No, the energetic output of Saturn is absolutely perfect. But around this Earth there is a mental atmosphere, if you like, a mind belt, and when those perfect energies come through the mind belt, they become warped, and it's here where the energies become distorted, but out there they're perfect. But anyway, because the devil knew that the most advanced beings on a planet in the solar system were on Saturn, whether he adopted the name or he was given it, I don't know. But he became known as Satan, which is taken from Saturn, as they are the most advanced beings on the planet in the solar system. So on the dark side, he was the most advanced being on this Earth, on the negative side. So he took the name Satan. Okay, and that's where the name came from. Some people will argue that, but it's so obvious that it's got to be right. So yes, the devil was killed. No matter what you do, somewhere down the line, every blink of the eye, every breath will be accounted for. You're given a certain amount of energy when you come into a given life. You're also given a certain number of breaths. You will take that number of breaths and you will be held accountable for every unit of energy you use. If you use that energy wrongly, I almost want to say you'll be doubly held responsible, because it's far more serious, If you're using that energy for good, fine. But the main point is that no matter which direction you go in, whatever you do will cause repercussions which will come back. And you cannot ever or indefinitely avoid it. Some of the black magicians, including Satan, use magical ritual, you might call it, procedures, secret procedures, to keep themselves out of the reincarnatory cycle, but you can only do it for so long. Karma is very exact. You've only given so much leeway. Given a man enough rope, eventually they'll hang themselves. And this is what Satan did. He was given enough rope, he was given plenty of time to change, he didn't. That's it. His time came, he's gone. But there are many others in the evil hierarchy beneath him, so there is still evil on the planet, although one or two of the more significant black magicians have now gone. So the situation is improving, despite appearances. Right, I've said enough. It's a long waffle. Don't even have any idea how long that has taken. So I'll stop the recording. I'll send my blessings to everyone who watches this. Thank you very much, my dear friends, and I hope that my waffle has been... I've just thought... I keep thinking of things. This is something that has to be said, and it should have been said early on. Some people will come back to me, as they have done when I've given one-to-one or one to a group of people, personal talks. Okay? You always get this. Can you prove anything? You say no. Not only can I not prove anything I say, it is not my responsibility to prove anything I say. You know, you don't have to believe it because I say it. This is what Buddha said as well, you know. But it is not my responsibility. You see, what it hinges on is, does this mean enough to you that you are willing to go out of your way to check it? If you make the effort to check, in this example, for what I'm saying, and you're open-minded, you will discover that what I've been saying is correct. If you don't make the effort to find out for yourself, you're not ready anyway. Don't look to other people for proof when it comes to things like this. You have to find, by your own efforts, that which will convince you. Never mind about anybody else, your friends, relatives, doesn't matter what they think. What convinces you? That's what it hinges on. You don't make the effort, you're not ready for it. The time will come when you will want to know, and you will make the effort. Oh, excuse me, hiccups. But not yet. Okay, I've said I was going. Thank you very much, and I do appreciate your visits to my various YouTube videos. Thank you very much, my dear friends, and God bless to you all. Thank you.